Hey, what's up everybody? Rob Marzullo here, Ram Studio Comics, and today's video is going to be on digital painting, and it is going to be, I think, a hand. So real quick, I'll go through the brush settings because that always seems to be a constant issue with people. I'm just going to use a hard round brush. Let me move some stuff out of the way here. Hard round brush. I'm going to start with shape dynamics, transfer on to pen pressure, and again, it's just a typical hard round, which I use a lot of times. Hard round marker comes with Photoshop. Makes a little dot like that. Little dot. Little dot. Anyways. Alright, so now with shape dynamics, I turn my opacity up a little bit more. I'll kind of do a little bit of my line work. So let's get started. And I took a picture of my own hand because it's harder to sit there and hold my hand out and study it or whatever. So you're going to get to see what my hand looks like. It looks like this. That's my hand. No. Alright, so first off, I just kind of, I'm not trying to be perfecto here, just kind of scribble it out. Have fun with it. You gotta oftentimes think in digital painting like stages anyways. Art and scribbling in general, but digital painting it very much works that way. So you want a real nice fluid start. You're gonna have plenty of time to tense up and you know overdraw stuff or try to add too many little details or whatever by the end. So in the beginning you want a nice fluid feel. And that thumb's pretty ugly, but I'll have, like like I'm saying, I'll have time to fix that. So just kind of looking at the form, trying to figure it out. Sometimes too, keep in mind that when you're drawing stuff or painting stuff, I should say, the drawing can look really weird. One way I figured this out when I was a kid, I hate to say that I ever traced, but I did, just to kind of, not so much to cheat, to examine the form, to study it. And, after a while, you trace it enough, you'd be amazed you can actually draw stuff that you trace long enough. At least I can anyway. So it's a good practice. It's not, it's cheating when you're doing it to, I don't know, sell it or say it's your own and you don't admit that you worked off somebody else's work, then that's cheating. That's definitely frowned upon. But as far as studying goes, it's good to examine the forms, and then what happens is you have a better understanding of it when you go to draw it from memory. So, but my point is with that a lot of times you'll draw out the form, trace it, whatever word you want to use there, and it will actually look really weird or improper. And see, I got a little bit of weirdness going on here because of the perspective of the hand. This finger and the pinky is going to appear to be a lot larger because of the forced perspective or the closeness to the camera. In typical, it wouldn't work that way. Usually, fingers are pointer, middle, ring, pinky, something like that. A little bit better drawn than that, but that shape relation. So yeah, at any rate, I would trace out these pictures and I'd realize they looked really funky, and I'm like, I traced exactly what I saw there. It went right around the contour of the person or the shape, and that's when it started to occur to me that, well, it's because shading and lighting adds so much to the form. So oftentimes it will look clunky in the beginning. You could see that this hand looks like you know, a 5-year-old drew it or something. Um, but I'm intentionally doing that. I'm not worrying too much on details. I'm trying to more or less look at the form, and you'll see as soon as I start adding a little bit of shading, it's going to come together a lot more, or at least I hope so. If not, I have to destroy this video and start over because I'll be dubbed a liar, and that's not good. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'll get to it about there, and let's try. Probably end the rest off here. Hold shift, you can draw a nice straight line. Gotta love that about Photoshop. Straight lines. Control Alt Z, go back. Okay. So selection tool, uh, select invert, inverse. I should hit the command keys or whatever, but I just used the stuff up here, menu. Okay, so select, modify, contract a couple pixels just to get it behind the lines. Layers, add another one. And you can do this any way you want. I just like to flood the background real quick. Control E combines those down. And then now you have the hand just on a floating layer but filled. And the benefit of that is what I'm getting ready to show you. Control D to deselect. And I'll drop the opacity right down, go to normal mode. Excuse me. Lock the transparent pixels. That means I can't draw outside of the hand, which is cool. Alright, so now I've got a nice light shade with my hard round marker, right? And I just start to slowly build in some grayscale and slowly build up my value or tones. So I'm studying the hand picture. I probably should have uploaded that so you can see it, but I don't want you to know how truly bad I am, so I'll just let you see the work as it's being done, and you tell me if it looks like a hand. So just a little here, a little there. You know, I try to think of this part as, for one, I think in terms of a little bit of 3D, uh, but I try to think of it like molding a piece of clay. And the reason why, and I don't know if I've mentioned this in other videos, I believe I have, but and be sure to watch those, please. But one of the reasons I think of it like clay is because I don't think of it so much as if I draw something the wrong way, it's ruined or it's stuck. With clay, you're constantly, molding and adding and taking away, adding and taking away, and that's the way you need to think your drawings, and you'll have a lot more freedom in the way that you're creating stuff. You won't think so much as in something getting ruined. It's very rare that I just scrap a drawing anymore because even if it's not heading in the right direction, I'll just stop, look at it the next day, or I'll put it away, and then oftentimes I might open the file up later, or even on paper, but I work mainly on digital now, and I'll open it up later and I'll give another crack at it. And sometimes that's another good technique when you're struggling to revisit something with a fresh brain. So even go get inspired. I use music. My family is a great inspiration. My little boy is probably the greatest inspiration I've got. Um, but if I'm feeling bummed or the art isn't going the right way, I just try to get inspired and then come back and revisit it. And oftentimes you'll see at least I do, I'll see a dramatic difference from trying to force through it. Sometimes you have to work through it, especially if it's a professional job. Deadlines are killer and you just have to work with them. But, you can get up and take a jog or do whatever, kind of resets you and come back, and so a lot of times that will help you dramatically, so keep that in mind. Oh, and just so I can explain each thing, so I don't just get off on these tangents here, I'm using a blending brush. I'll show you the settings on that. I like scattering on just a little bit. It blends it to the sides, which is, I think, pretty cool. Transfer set to pin pressure. It doesn't have opacity jitter on that, and I'm not sure why, but it's just the way it's set up. And I hit smoothing, and that's it. And all this is one of the chalk brushes. Again, I have all these brushes, but I really do only use the ones that come with Photoshop. I remember when I first started studying digital painting, and people would say that. I'm like, yeah, right. There's like this special brush you're using, and that's why it comes out so good. And you just don't want us novices to know. And no, they're really telling the truth, and now I can attest to that. It's just basically how you use them and how you approach the settings. Um, I thought for sure that shape dynamics had to be on everything, and I think it comes from my comic book illustration background, and it really doesn't. Like, I have it on almost nothing now. The only time I use shape dynamics is in the very beginning when I'm trying to draw something out. Past that, it's all just the transfer, and thinking in terms of the way that you overlay the and right now I'm erasing some of the form to kind of chisel it out, again thinking in terms of like clay or something. um, but yeah, so it's just basically, you know the way that you overlay the tones and you build up, your value and your depth and things like that. Another good thing to do is to drag your shadows. I really find myself doing that a lot more now. So say I see like a good tone, and I can use a hard round brush, same thing as I use for painting, and now I can grab a tone, and it's really going to stretch that tone. See, that's just me stretching it with the, I'm still on smudge, but with that hard round brush. So what I'll do is if I see a tone I like, especially if I'm going for more of a vector kind of look, or I don't know how to explain it, more illustrated look, I guess, I'll drag that shadow right all the way around and kind of, get a lot of that tone where I want it. You can even do this with the lines. You can even do this with the form if you have your transparency taken off or whatever. You can drag this shape around the edge. Say I want the little, the thumb kind of bends in here. It kind of, you got the knuckle. Even though you don't see it from this angle, you see the shape change in the thumb. So you got to, build that in there. And then this part kind of rounds out. But see how I can just drag the tone where I want it? I'm not saying it's perfect. I'll go back and still adjust it with the other brush and kind of smudge it in. With digital painting, you really don't want these lines anyway, so you try to, you know, smudge all lines out and then build anything back in with just tone and shading. So I don't like shading with this brush. I just like I said, reforming it, you know, building my shapes in, and then moving my tones around. It's a quick time saver for whatever reason. So sometimes it's quicker than sitting there trying to, paint a shadow. And I'll zoom up to this finger, which looks pretty clunky, and I'll show you what I'm talking about a little bit better. Actually, that middle finger does need to be up higher. Imagine that, the middle finger being up higher. Don't do it. It's not nice. Not nice to give people the middle one. Okay, so I can basically just reform this. I'm really not even losing much opacity as I do this, which is kind of neat. That's why I think it's a good time saver. And then say I like this shadow right here, right there, that tone. I can take that, I can pull that sucker all the way through the finger. I can, you know, use it where, all right, this finger starts to be more shaded up here. So I can pull that tone all the way up there. So it's pretty neat. I don't know, something's cool about it. You can do some really neat hair effects with this. Yeah, just dink around with it, see what you think. So look at all this great information you're getting today. Isn't this awesome? Digital painting is fun. I really do like it. Something about it is very peaceful and serene. I can hear the birds chirping in my head. Psycho. Yeah, anyways, I zone out when I'm doing this stuff, obviously. But yeah, and I just keep moving that stuff around and poking and prodding and playing with it till I get it right. Erase some of these lines. Again, I don't, you know, any good digital painting, you don't see a whole lot of lines unless you're going for a mix of like a comic book illustration slash digital paint. Then, in which case, I'll actually work with these lines. I'll almost eliminate them by the end of the paint work if I'm doing it in this regard or this process. But then I'll draw some on back in at the very end. It looks really cool. It's just I don't know. I oftentimes thought about doing a whole comic book like that because it does look really neat. I know there's guys out there doing it for sure, but it's just a really cool style, and it's actually not that slow. I mean, I always thought in the beginning that digital painting would be extremely, uh, you know, a long and arduous process, and it's really not. It's actually quicker, in my opinion, than drawing. I mean, here I'm taking my time, but there's parts where, as you're drawing a whole scene, definitely background elements. You don't have to draw into it this much. This would just be a close-up shot, and you see. I mean, I'm not even to the highlights yet. It's already starting to kind of take form. Then when you come to the highlights, you can either dodge or burn them or just paint white. I'll just paint white in. I use the same hard round brush. I'll bump the opacity up a little bit more. I'll lock the layer transparency right there, or I think I'm saying that right. And all that is it basically it won't go outside of it, which is really, another good time saver. So now I'll bump that up a little more. So now I'll start building in just a little bit of the highlights. I usually tone it down a lot more before I get to the highlights, but I just want to show you how quickly, you can start getting some decent form out of these digital paintings. And I don't know where I'm at time wise. I think I'm somewhere around like 15 minutes into this, which isn't horribly bad. I mean, I won't want to take 15 minutes to draw a hand every time, I guess, but if it's a close up shot and the hand is the hero in the scene, meaning it's the main actor of that particular scene or whatever. When I say hero, just so you know what I mean, I don't mean the hand's like a hero out fighting crime or nothing like that. But so you just kind of build that in. Start getting a little bit of your, your texturing in there. Some people like to grab textures from other things, even from photography or whatever, and some people like to just draw it in. I tend to draw it in a little more. And that middle finger is pretty bad, but we'll get there. And that's my only problem. Sometimes I struggle more with like a certain element I'm trying to get right, like a shape or a shadow or whatever. So I'm like no old pro yet, but I'm figuring it out, and that's half the fun and half the battle. And hands are always tricky. That's why I go to these a lot. Like when I'm practicing, I draw hands because to me, if I can get hands right, I can draw anything because they're the toughest thing for me. That and feet. And feet are just not that interesting to draw, so I'd rather just slap a shoe on it. But some, they're tricky. They have a lot to them. Hands especially, they're just very. There's a lot going on there. You got wrinkles. You got you know, the fingers all kind of have their own direction they're taking or can take. Um, there's a lot of dynamics to the hand. So if you really want to improve your art, study there and study often. So I'll just keep trying to. And again, I said this earlier, but just to remind you, hold shift. Nice little straight line. Love that. Love that about this software. Okay, so now when I want to get back to blending, say I've got my tones and my lines pulled where I want, I could definitely take it a lot further. I'll go back to the blending brush, and there I just got it to smooth in the settings I showed you earlier. So if you missed that, just go back and you can see the settings. Real simple though. I mean, I don't even know that you have to have scattering on. I like the way that it softens the edge from side to side, but you got to be careful not to overdo it because then you're going to get too much of an airbrushed look, and you want a little bit of texture in there to look more painterly or traditional. So make sure you don't, go too crazy with smoothing everything out. I oftentimes do. And and the other thing would be this: you want to get in the habit of learning how to smooth with your painting process, and not so much um, with the smoothing brush. You can, for one, your time savings are going to be huge, uh, in just your confidence as a painter. Um, I notice that when I see some really good digital painting, some guys will, smooth like crazy. Other guys just do it right as they're painting, and they seem to be a heck of a lot quicker. So, oh, and another thing is for some really great digital painting, just check out Chris Scalf on YouTube here. Fantastic work. Personal friend and artist buddy of mine, and I've been fortunate to learn a ton from him, and he's an amazing dude all the way around. So check his stuff out. Um, and Chris, you owe me a coffee for that one. So, And shameless plug time, check out the Blackstone Eternal comic if you get a chance. That's my own little personal vendetta, my little thing there. So hopefully you dig it. I'm working on book two. It's a slow process. I have to draw and make money, and then when I have time, draw my own little shindig there. But if you get a chance to check it out, cool beans. If not, I won't hate. So just all the help or support is always welcomed. And I'll probably wrap this up. I mean, obviously, I could progress this for hours and get a really dynamic looking hand. But I just wanted to kind of show you more of the process. Actually, I'll fill in a nice shadow through here. Um, and I could time lapse it and all that, but if you want to see a more finished rendition of this, I'll probably upload it to my DeviantArt, and that's ramstudios1.deviantart. But I'm just basically, again, showing you the process and trying to help, you beginners like me that are trying to figure certain things out. So that's more the process of this instead of, taking this to a fully dynamic, rendered out hand, which, wouldn't take too long, but I've got a ton of work, which is a good thing, right? So I got to get back to it. And but all you do is just keep adding and doing what I'm there, and then flip back and forth. Add some. Oh, I'm in dodge and burn. Paint your highlights and your shadows back and forth. So if I want these, veins right here to pop out and these wrinkles, I'm gonna add some highlights right by the shadows like that, and then go back and maybe smudge them in or blend back and forth. So yeah. So hopefully this has been educational for you and you learned a couple things. And if you did, let me know. And if you didn't, let me know. And let me know what you'd like to see in the future so I can keep these videos coming and keep this channel growing. So I do appreciate you watching. Thanks very much. Have a great day. Keep drawing and keep having fun. Bye bye.